Ba 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 da 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 da. Hip in the lip. Ba 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 ba. Hip in the lip. Welcome. Yes, 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 yes. Hip in the lip, an Islanders podcast. I am the hip, and this is the lip.
Yes, yes, yes. Hello, says the lip. Hello. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
hello and welcome. And it's fitting to begin tonight's episode, this President's Day evening, with a a cappella version of our theme song that's in the works, inspired by the beautiful music on the Grammys this evening. In fact, Justin Bieber is on stage as we speak. Oh,
That's right.
oh,
I forgot it's Grammy's evening. Whoops.
our favorite. So we have a lot to discuss tonight. Three games this past week. The Islanders won two of them. It, to me, continues this thematical roller coaster of a season that we seem to be enduring here. Jekyll and Hyde, uh,
Or
whatever you
Heckle and
want.
Jekyll is what she likes to say.
Yes, it is.
Yep, that is what she
And,
likes to say.
it
Heckle and
has its
Jekyll.
really high highs, but then some of these games, there's super low lows. And part of me wants some more stability. Maybe we won't get it. Maybe it's going to be more of this just emotional ride. So we'll get to the games.
Well,
The
we'll put on our psychiatry hats for a second, and we'll just diagnose the Islanders as bipolar. Super high highs, super low lows.
Never heard of bipolar before, so I don't know if I get that one. Highs and lows on bipolar. So
Highs and
three
lows.
games to cover. There a goaltending controversy in the works? We have the hipster moment of Zenit, of course. There was a New York Post article a couple days ago from Mr. Larry Brooks talking about where a certain Islanders player may be in 2 years. Kind of a ways away. I don't really see it being that big of a deal, but I may find disagreement on that point. So let's start with the high. The New York Islanders taking the Kings and kicking them out of their building in a 5-2 decisive victory on Thursday night last week. 5-2. Rick DiPietro came out after the first period. The Islanders scored 3 goals in the first period of this game. He came out during first intermission, and said it was the best period for the Islanders all season. And I know you give so much weight to Rick DiPietro's analysis.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, the self-proclaimed Humpty Dumpty. I'm sure his analysis is absolutely spot on. As much as his play was as goalie in his illustrious career as a goaltender for the New York Islanders.
But come on, give us some more on this on this game, though. I mean, look, they're taking one of the best. We built up the excitement on this game in our last episode, saying how the Kings are one of the top teams in the league, and here the Islanders just, it was decisive.
It surely was. I mean, hey, look, you played one of the best teams in the league, and for the most part, there was a few moments in the game, and it was funny actually. So after the game was over in his press conference, Jack Capuano was not very complimentary of his team. I guess was very critical of I guess like certain parts of the game when he felt that they didn't play at their best. But actually, I didn't think it was really warranted. I mean, there's always talk about a coach doesn't want his team to get complacent. So he's never happy when he's not happy when they win. When they lose, he'll take it on himself. But when you win, he's ultra critical, and that's kind of what happened on Thursday night. But no, to be honest, I thought it was one of their better games of the season. I don't know. I would go as far as what DiPietro says that it was the best first period for the Islanders all season. But they played a disciplined game. They played a very efficient game. Really, not too many mistakes. I mean, the Kings did push them a little bit. And when they made it 3-1, you got a little nervous with the dreaded 3-goal lead.
Right. Yeah.
as a phrase that you'll hear uttered quite often when it comes to the Islanders. But they were pushing him in that second period, and then Tavares, his fourth goal, really just shut the door on any momentum that the Kings had built up for themselves. And actually, that was really a terrific shift by Tavares' line. And yes, Brian Straight was on the ice for that. So if you want to credit Brian Straight, and we will be talking about him just a little bit during this episode. But +1, yes, he was +1. So kudos again, Brian Straight. And we will be getting to him a little bit later as well. But that was a terrific shift by Tavares. And the one thing that you would notice is that Drew Doughty was not on the ice for that goal, the Kings' top defenseman. And Doughty was, going to be on the ice for, much of the game whenever Tavares stepped onto the ice. And Tavares they were able to get Tavares' line on the ice. Doughty was not on at the time. And they were able to keep the puck in the Kings' end for like a solid minute. The Kings were able to clear, and they tried, getting Doughty on, but they weren't able to. And Tavares came right back in and, put the shot past. I think it was Enroth that was playing for the Kings. Their all-world goalie, Jonathan Quick, was not in the start. Did not start the game. He was injured, but a tremendous effort by Tavares' line on that. Right prior to that goal, and that really shut the door on any momentum that the Kings had built for themselves.
And one point we made in a previous episode, I asked you the question. It was the All-Star break episode. If there's an Islanders player that you're expecting to step up and start playing a lot better than he did in the first half, you went to maybe an obvious answer, but it's to you it was the answer you thought was genuine, most accurate, John Tavares. And I think as we go through each game, his name is just going to keep coming up in a positive light. And so, we have some more stats that come up based on the other games that we'll discuss. But it certainly looks like he's making you look good for once.
What didn't really take much foresight on my part to say that John Tavares would have a better second half, considering how talented a player he is, and considering that he was, definitely underwhelming with his performance in the first half of the year, at least stat-wise.
The boldest of Flip's boldest predictions of all time.
No question. Really going out on a limb as I like to do.
So another guy that we talked about quite a bit earlier in our in earlier episodes, I should say, Johnny Boychuk, who went down with the supposedly mysterious upper body injury, and analyzing what would the Islanders do in his absence. But now with him back, we're starting to see the player that the Islanders were missing on the ice, and in fact, he got the scoring started in this game against the Kings. 6:05 into the first period, and he finished the game +1. Yeah, right. We'll get to that. He finished the game +1, and I saw a stat that he is +60 since the start of the 13-14 season, which is the best amongst all defensemen in the NHL.
Really? Johnny Boy? Wow. I mean, of course, that included a couple seasons with the Kings, but with the Bruins, I mean. But wow, that's quite an impressive stat there for Mr. Boychuk.
Credit
+60. And
since the 13-14 season, the start of the 13-14 season.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think part of that had, when he was on Boston, obviously he was a very good player for Boston, but I think probably their entire team was in the plus, almost their entire team was in the plus category probably during that time period. And you had some guys on that team like Patrice Bergeron and maybe Brad Marchand that were, probably had a couple seasons where they were +30 or upwards of +40. So of course,
maybe okay. So you're saying it maybe padded a little bit. It's
Well, yeah. I don't want to make it seem like it's completely skewed and it doesn't really give an accurate portrayal of his play. I mean, that's not fair. But again, I mean, plus minus is one of those stats where it could be a little bit misleading, at least when you have players in the very plus or very minus category, as to that as to how indicative it is of their play on the ice. But Boychuk has played really well since he's gotten back. So thank you for bringing him up, because he has really been I mean, just, he adds depth to their defense. He's back with Letty now, as Jack, I guess, liked DeHaan and Hamonic back together, so he put him back with Letty, whom he played with all of last season and then the beginning of this season. Struggled a bit, though, that tandem, so he separated them for a bit. But unleashed that howitzer of his to start off the game against the Kings, as you pointed out.
All 12 listeners now know what a howitzer is?
Now know exactly what we're referring to, that the hockey nomenclature for a very, very hard, fast slap shot, which
very
Mr.
useful
Boychuk
information to have in life, of course. So I'll just make one more point about the game, and feel free to mention anything else you got. Otherwise, next, Thomas Greiss was the goaltender in the victory against the Kings.
Yes, he was, and another solid performance by Thomas Greiss. So, and he will come up again later on in this episode. But a very solid game for Thomas Greiss.
And a solid game for the team. So you're ready for next?
Yeah, I think we covered it. Again,
right.
Overall,
the
Western. I guess we'll throw out there, and this is amazing, that the Islanders are this year 12-0-2 at home against the Western Conference, which is the best record against any. Against the West by any team in the East, so that's pretty amazing. And I think overall for the season, and this is now all games, including road games, are like 14-4-2 or something like that against the West. So, considering that the West is looked at as a stronger conference, that's very, very impressive by our Islanders.
It is, but then there must be some unimpressive stat with respect to the Islanders' performance against their own conference, I imagine.
I'm sure that we can look at. I'm sure that would definitely imply that the Islanders' record against the East is not very good.
All right.
Yeah, it's probably fair to say.
So coming off that high, they go to a Saturday evening game at Carolina, 7 p.m. Eastern start, and just ugh, 6-3 loss. This game, the Islanders were never really in it. I think they maybe got to within 2 goals for like a minute or something, but maybe it was 3 goals for a minute. Either way, you never felt good about this game. At least I didn't watching it. And it's just going along this Jekyll and Hyde theme. 2 days later, they're facing a team that is, kind of down there in the standings. Not awful, but not coming off a win against the Kings. You think they would at least be competitive, and it didn't feel that way.
No, they were hideous in this game. The cluttered duck. Buck did not play in the game. He was ill, so Steve Bernier took his spot. Not that was the reason that they lost, but no, they were hideous the whole game from start to finish. Yeah, they cut the lead to 4-2 there, and it was getting excited. Oh, momentum for the Islanders, and then of course, I think the Hurricanes scored 2 goals to close out the second period. And obviously it was game over at that point, and the third period was just nothing. But they were hideous the whole game, start to finish. No positives to take out of this game. Another one of those burn the tape and move on. And I made sure to recognize that Butchie was criticizing the team, and whenever Butchie's criticizing the team, that must mean playing bad, because as we know, anybody that watches Islander games, Butchie is one of the ultimate cheerleaders in the booth.
Butch Goring
color commentary.
Butch Goring, for those who aren't aware, and Eric, give us the quick lowdown on his connection with the Islanders.
You mean his connection with the team?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Butchie's a former player. For those who are not aware of their history, Butchie was actually a player for the Kings early in his career, and then was traded to the Islanders in 1980 at the trade deadline, and this was right before their dynasty began. And a lot of people looked at this
in
as
1980?
I can't give you that. I was still not alive. It was still another 3.5 years until I was born. But I couldn't tell you today. I know it was right before the trade deadline. That I do know. And he was looked at as the proverbial missing piece for the Islanders, as they were kind of muddling along that year. An ultra-talented team that had underwhelmed the year before as they lost to the
Who
New
is he
York
traded
Rangers.
for? Who is he traded for?
He actually was traded for Billy Harris, and I want to say Dave Lewis, maybe. That I'm not. I know it was
You're
definitely.
looking at. You got to be looking at this.
No, I'm not. I swear, I'm not. I know it was definitely Billy Harris. I know it was definitely Billy Harris. The second guy, I want to say Dave Lewis. I'm not 100% sure, though. I'd have to go back and look that up.
It's Dave Lewis.
You looked it up?
Yeah.
I wasn't 100% on that. That I would have had to. Billy Harris, I knew. Billy Harris was actually, I think, their first overall draft pick when in their inauguration year in 1972. He was actually the answer to a trivia question recently. But she came in and kind of was the glue there that binded the championship team together, as they would go on, of course, to win 4 straight cups. And Butchie was a Conn Smythe winner one of those years, and he was actually the head coach 15 years ago for the team. Not too much success. I think he coached for like a year and a half, and here he is now as the color commentator.
How long has he been the color commentator?
It's funny. So he goes back. So the prior color commentator was Billy Jaffe, who I thought was great. I loved him. Him and Howie together, I thought were a dynamic duo. But the reason, actually, that Billy Jaffe is no longer the color commentator of the Islanders is because he dared criticize the team and the ownership. And once Charles Wang got wind of this, it was, you're done. You can't be an employee of the New York Islanders anymore. How dare you criticize me? And since then, Charles has instituted his own variation of Soviet-style censorship. So that's why I was shocked to hear that Butchie was criticizing the team, because he knows that, he may be in trouble if he dares do something like that. So
the one thing I question
there,
is, but the color commentator isn't an employee of the team, right?
Yeah,
but it's close enough that they can still exercise their big
the
stick.
Islanders they have say as to who is going to be their announcers. Yeah,
right.
So it's pretty.
He has to. He can be critical, but he has to be more supportive than critical to keep his job, basically.
More or less, yeah. So okay. That must tell you how badly. That just goes to show you how badly they were playing in that game. The fact that he had the gall to criticize the team. He used the word unacceptable.
And that was. Wow. I will bring self-awareness on how he just nicely came full circle on that discussion. Coming back
that was good, actually. That actually was. Well, because you asked me who the prior guy was, and that brought us right back, because he was fired, again, allegedly, because of the fact that he criticized the team and the owner, and, in the Islander, in the Charles Wang gulag, that is the New York Islander organization, nobody dare dissent or criticize. Otherwise,
you wonder what the new owner's attitude is going to be towards it. They're obviously going to want to inject as much positivity as possible. So we'll see.
But yeah, there was a pretty hideous performance. Halak was awful. As bad as the team was in front of him, I didn't like the way Halak played.
Yeah,
I was.
Halak just looked bad.
Top to bottom, wretched performance by the New York Islanders.
So that put the Islanders at 54 games played on the season. And so when was the last year the Islanders won the Stanley Cup?
1983. I think it was.
Okay. So.
Yeah, so 7 months before I was born, I guess.
Okay, so. If you had to guess through 54 games, you take the number of points that the Islanders have this year through 54 games. How many seasons through 54 games since 1983, so starting the season after, have they had more points than they did through 54 games this year?
Should I go from memory, or should I go?
What's the alternative? Look it up and tell us. I have the answer. So what's the alternative to memory?
Because maybe I was studying. Their, the team's records for 54 games right before we started. I think NHL.com has the archives there. Well, you got to remember though, you have the loser points now. So that's the one. That's the one thing is that you have the recent institution of the loser point. When you get to overtime and lose, whereas you had ties. The ties back in the day, or if you lost in overtime, you got nothing. You got zilch.
Yep.
So it's only. I know last season they had more points. Maybe 2001, 2002. Maybe one or two other seasons. That's it. I know definitely last season, 2001, 2002, they may have been like around this pace, maybe a higher pace.
What would have been the other season? You said there may have been another season. What season do you think it would have been?
Well, I don't think it would have been 92, 93. It wouldn't have been 92, 93. I don't know, maybe another one in the mid-'80s. You said post-Cup years, right? So maybe one in the mid-'80s, 83, 84, I guess would be an obvious guess.
All right, so here's the answer. The answer is 1, and it's last year. Last year they had
just one season.
One season. Last year they had 71 points through 54 games. This year they had 64. So 7 points fewer this year, and then the next most were 63 points in, yes, 2001, 2002.
I thought they would have been ahead of that this year's. Well,
no, so this year we're ahead by a point. And then 1985-86, they had 62 points. Just for some contextual purposes. So one season in the post-Cup era have had more points than this year.
Which was last year.
Just to give some context, on how the Islanders are doing in their relative history. So let's move on to today's game against a day game, a Monday day game, President's Day, hosting the Detroit Red Wings, the Detroit Red Wings, who have kind of just walked over the Islanders the last few games that they've played. So the Islanders, with, I might mention again, Thomas Greiss in net, have a nice little 4-1 victory, bouncing back against that horrific performance at Carolina. And your thoughts?
Well, I just want to point out first that I have if they knew that they were going to be starting Greiss in this game, and I think that was their plan all along. I mean, usually they plot this out, I think, like, and I think, obviously depending on how many games you have slated for a week or whatever, but I think they knew Greiss was starting today. Why in the hell was Thomas Greiss backing up Halak on Saturday? And you want to say it's not that big of a deal, I fine. But if you knew Greiss was starting today, why didn't you have Berube, since he's on the roster, backing up Halak on Saturday? And when you had to pull him, and then Greiss played the entire third period. I mean, granted, it wasn't a back-to-back scenario, so you want to say it wasn't a big deal, fine. But still, I think it was pretty dumb.
But the point is that Greiss came in that game against Carolina because Halak was just playing so poorly.
Right. Because Halak was terrible. So they would have just brought in Berube if he was the backup and scratched Greiss, and then you had Greiss today. Whatever, it didn't matter. Greiss played a great game today. I
mean, but let's just expand on this a little bit. So by having Greiss back up Halak and the scenario playing out the way it did, because Greiss had to come in on that Saturday night game, is there a concern that Greiss playing a period and a half or whatever, a day and a half before his theoretically scheduled start is going to make him less than 100%?
No. I guess, like I said, I'm probably making a bigger deal of it. But I mean, since you have 3 goalies on the roster, if you knew starting Greiss on Monday, just scratch him. Make Berube the backup, and then if you have to pull off, which they did, then Berube goes in, and then Greiss is fresher for today's game.
What about the argument that Greiss, by actually playing a little bit, may have been kept more sharp for today? Is there any?
Yeah, but he played Thursday though. I guess, but he did play on Thursday. And I mean, and obviously, it's very touchy now with goalies. Like we talked about Marty Brodeur the last episode. He used to play 70 games a year, and now there are so many goalies that have difficulty playing more than like 50. So, you always worry about a goalie getting worn down or tired as the season goes along. But No, it probably wasn't that big of a deal. I'm probably making a bigger deal than it was, but I don't know. You have three goalies in the roster.
It's weird.
It's just that this is unusual.
I'm sensing some analogy here to like the use of pitchers in baseball, the way that you're describing it. I don't know if it makes any sense, but that's the way it sounds.
No, look, and goalies are also finicky, like starting pitchers are, at least with their routines and their schedules. But I'm probably making a bigger deal than it was. And again, you usually don't have three goalies on your active roster, so it's usually not. It's a moot point normally for most teams because you have your goalie, you have your number one, your number two, and that's it.
So how is the goalie's schedule? How's the goalie's schedule finicky? Like what makes them so particular about what they do? Like what's an example of a routine goalie?
From what I understand, they're very superstitious. Nobody. It's like a starting pitcher. Like nobody can talk to them on game day. You just leave them alone. They have to get like into their own zone. So at least just from what I've gathered, reading things and watching, the NHL Road to the Winter Classic on HBO gives you some insight as to teams' preparations before games. And you see the goalies, they're sitting there and they're like this with their hands, with their hands cupped over their faces, and nobody talk to me. If anybody comes near me, I'm going to take my stick and like hit you over the head with it. So, and I'm sure, hey, look, obviously it didn't affect Rice because he played a great game today. So who am I to criticize, right?
Well, look, I mean, correlation or causation, or neither. It's interesting to note. So in that, I'll just mention in that game against Carolina, John Tavares did actually take back over the team lead in goals and points. He was not even that we noted in previous episode where Mr. Brock Nelson was the team leader in goals. And Mr. Tavares took the lead over following Carolina, but that lead did not last long because Mr. Brock Nelson himself scored his 21st goal against Detroit.
Yeah, he did. So they are now tied at 21 apiece, our Brock and John. So it looks like they're both going to.
As you saw it happening this year.
Well, everybody saw it happening. It was very obvious from day one. It looks like they're both on pace right now for 30, so hopefully they continue on the same pace that they are on. Nelson's actually his goal was a very nice goal today. It was a very skillful goal by Brock, as there was a high stick actually that was not reviewable. I'm going to get to this in just a second because it's something that's interesting, and Butchie made a point, but it was something that I made a mental note of before Butchie pointed it out. But, it was a pass from Ryan Strome that kind of got deflected. Nelson knocked it down, went in on goal. I think it, deflected off the goalie's pad, and Nelson potted it behind him, behind Jimmy Howard today for the first Islander goal in the second period. That gave him the 1-0 lead. But it was interesting because Brock knocked down the puck out of the air, and it was questionable as to whether or not he did it with a high stick. But there was talk then that Detroit wanted, a review, but that was not a reviewable play because of the fact that the high stick did not directly lead to the goal. So in order for the play to have been blown dead, the ref would have had to have done it right away if he judged that it was a high stick. But since he didn't, the play continued, and then he scores 1-0, no review. So interesting. Just wanted to make a note of that.
And
so,
technically, to be a high stick, it has to be higher than
above the crossbar. The crossbar.
Any part of the stick or the top, the blade.
Yeah. Well, the top part of the stick. So if the puck is above the crossbar, and then you're using your stick to knock it out of the air, that's an automatic. That's an infraction. And
what if you're holding? What if you're holding your stick like just straight up, and like the top of the stick just happens to touch the puck when it's above the crossbar? Because the sticks are taller than the crossbar.
Still no good. Still no good. Still no good.
Still okay. All right. Rules are rules.
I mean, it has to be intent to knock it out of the air, I think. So if it's invertent, like if it happens to hit the stick, but no, it has to be intent on the player to knock it out of the air. So that was what happened. I mean, he did intend to knock it out of the air, did Brock, and but the referee didn't see it as a high stick infraction, so play continued, and a split second later, it's in the back of the net.
I think you mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about Brian Straight again. Was there
well,
I don't want to let that
I did mention that. So, he was scratched today, if you'll notice. But Eric Zidlicki took his spot, scored a goal today. Did Zidlicki. But Brian Straight actually had played, and he actually played well in the Kings game. And something I didn't mention before, but he did play well in that game. I guess it was said, maybe Butchie just said this, I don't know if Capuano did, that it was Straight's best game all year, maybe even his best game as an Islander, if you can believe that, and not that he played so amazing in that game. But it was funny that right when Butchie mentioned this, about how well Straight had been playing overall over the last couple of games, he committed a terrible defensive zone turnover, and overall had a pretty lousy game. He kind of went back to his default Brian Straight crappiness, if you will. He was caught napping on one of the goals there against Carolina. Just had a pretty lousy game. So out of the lineup he comes. Into the lineup goes Zidlicki. Zidlicki scores a goal, and here we go again with the revolving door of your number 6 defenseman.
Well,
straight back to Zidlicki.
Mr. Calvin DeHaan left the game with an injury, so Zidlicki and Straight may both be on the ice against the Capitals on Thursday.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens there.
And you look very stressed. The look. That are only listening. For people that are only listening, we do broadcast this live on YouTube. But the lips face of he just looks so stressed when I made that observation. Like he can't even bear the thought of Zidlicki and Straight both being active in this game against the Capitals, a team that the Islanders have not beaten this year yet, right? Was 0-2. They played twice, once in each building.
Yeah, get ready for a Chinese. If they're on the ice together at the same time, if DeHaan does not play, then get ready for a Chinese fire drill in their own zone.
And you think, I mean, it's almost impossible to avoid both of them not being on the ice at the same time at some point, right? Or is it possible to avoid that?
I mean, it just depends on how he does the pairings there. Hopefully, DeHaan will be back, but I guess there was some concern expressed on the part of the head coach after the game today that they're not sure how serious the injury is.
Lower body.
So that'll be who knows? Oh, I think they did say lower body. Yeah, I think they did say lower body. So
but it wasn't apparent. It wasn't apparent. I didn't see it. It wasn't apparent how.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I don't. Yeah, I don't know if anybody pinpointed that, but it'll have to be a wait and see us.
So let me mention, Greiss was the goalie against Detroit. He started 22 games this year for the Islanders, has won 16 of those games. And his save percentage among goalies with at least 20 starts this year is third best in the NHL. 20 starts. Yeah. Is that a significant enough sample size? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. That is a significant sample size. I mean that. He's played much better than I ever could have anticipated. Well, at least my expectations. I'm way beyond my expectations. Now they really do have a legitimate controversy. And I don't know. And
what's the big deal if they start just using Greiss 2 out of every 3 games? Just Halak's been terrible.
Well, that's what the thing.
Justifies using Halak?
He has nothing, and they don't have to. But it's interesting though because normally you like to have at least teams kind of like in football. You have your starting quarterback, you have your backup. Now obviously it's different here because your backup's going to play, but usually your starter is going to play an overwhelming majority of the games, and your backup's going to come in to spell them. Maybe back to backs. I mean, you do have some situations there where you have like a 1 and 1A, and it just depends on, your approach and your philosophy as a coach. If you want to have, a clear number 1 with a backup, which is what I think which was their intent coming into this year, that it was number 1 is Halak, number 2 is Greiss. No 1 and 1A. No, we're going to split you up and, play half, for one, half for the other. So, but now considering that Halak has really struggled, I mean, we'll see, what they do Thursday. They have a back-to-back Thursday and Friday. Do they play Greiss in the game that they think is more important? I mean, Washington is way ahead of them. I mean, yeah, it's a big game because it's Washington, but they are way ahead of them. They're not catching them. The Devils are nipping on their heels. It'll be interesting to see.
Washington is 18 points ahead of the Islanders right now.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say they are not catching them for the division unless they just completely fall apart the Capitals.
The Devils are 1 point behind the Islanders, but they've played the Devils 2 more games than the Islanders. So
right, they have 2 games in hand.
Yeah,
right.
In hand.
But
why? I don't know where that phrase came from. It doesn't completely make sense to me, but whatever. We'll let that one go. All right. Actually, you were mentioning this goalie, Greiss and Halak, and how you usually have one guy getting most of the starts. Kind of a shot in the dark here, but I'll throw it out there. This is the extent of my depth of hockey knowledge.
All right.
Was it 92, 93 where Van Viesbroek and Richter were both on the Rangers?
Yeah, they were on the Rangers. Yeah, they were. They played. I want to say it was like a good 3 or 4 years at least that they played. That they were that they were the dual netminders for the Rangers. Yeah.
But at first, was it Van Viesbroek? Well, because Richter was a rookie for the Rangers. He came up with the Rangers, so maybe it's a little different than Greiss Halak. Greiss isn't a rookie now, but
yeah. Well, Van Viesbroek.
But didn't Richter just over time, and we'd have to look at this more specifically, but didn't Richter just kind of like eat into Van Viesbroek's starts over those couple of years until he left?
Yeah, I forget exactly how that dynamic played out. I guess shame on me for not remembering, right? But I think Van Viesbroek came up in the mid '80s, and then don't ask me who was the other goalie for the Rangers at that time, because I don't know. But Richter, I think was a rookie in like 90 to 80. No, Ron Hextall was too busy taking the Flyers to the Cup Finals, if you can believe that.
I know.
Deceive Ronnie Hextall. Islander fans have nightmares of 6-0 games 1 and 2 in '94. Terrible. But yeah, Richter and Van Viesbroek, though, it was at least like 3 or 4 years they played together as the tandem for the Rangers. But yeah, Richter, I think their plan was to have him eventually supplant Van Viesbroek, at least if he played well enough. But that's what their hope was, I think. And obviously, we know that did happen. And Richter, of course, backstopped the Rangers to that Cup in '94. Van Viesbroek was already off the team as the Rangers had the Islanders' former goalie backing up, Glenn Healy, who I remember mentioning on the last show.
Indeed.
The last episode. And but yeah, you are correct though, Mr. Hip.
Is there something you want to mention briefly about this New York Post article by Larry Brooks about a certain Islanders player not being with the Islanders in a couple of years?
Yeah, it's one more thing I just want to get into this game. The Islanders' 4th goal was an awesome goal. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a tremendous no-look pass from John Tavares, and it wasn't just a blind pass. It was clear that he knew that Ryan Strome, who scored the goal, was trailing on the play. They came in on the rush. Tavares had the puck, drew a defender, and actually, drew 2 defenders, and was able to put a beautiful backhand pass right onto the tape of Ryan Strome, who blasted it past Jimmy Howard for the 4th goal, and that was basically the sealed it for them. But
sealed the taint.
Awesome goal. Sealed the taint. So it was sealed and has not yet been reopened. So a awesome goal.
All right.
By Johnny. All
right.
But yes. So
speaking of which,
article. Did you see the article?
Yes, I read it. I read it just before we went on the air.
All right. So. So of course, then the theme of the article, and that John Tavares, who is the Islanders' captain, best player, face of the franchise, heart and soul, whatever other title you want to attach to him, as an Islander player, Mr. Brooks, of course, I guess had nothing else, other news to report, so he decided to kind of link Steven Stamkos' situation in Tampa, who is going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and there's speculation that Toronto is going to make a big run at Stamkos if he makes it to free agency. But Larry Brooks is saying, hey, Toronto, why would you do that? At least why would he want to go to you when you go there when you're rebuilding, when you can have John Tavares in a couple of years when he hits unrestricted free agency, since you're going to be much farther along in your rebuild. So, of course, he was pulling a page out of the Donald Trump playbook by fear-mongering. As Islander fans, the nightmare scenario is John Tavares packing up and leaving when his contract is up in a couple of years, which will be at the end of the 2017-18 season. So,
maybe it was Larry Brooks's point was build a practice facility close to where you play.
Yeah, I know. It's they live such a tough life, right? The professional athletes, they have to commute to Brooklyn from Long Island. Oh, terrible. Feel terrible for them. I mean, obviously they keep.
In fairness, in support of that, they would have a lot more time in the car to listen to certain radio commentator. Because that commentator loves talking about New York Islanders hockey.
Well, why would you want to listen to that commentator when you can listen to these two commentators that you're listening to right now, that are speaking right now?
Yeah,
right now
on iTunes. Go rate us, please. We want to, actually get maybe from 10 to 20 subscribers. Actually, I don't know how many subscribers we have, but theoretical listeners, double our listener base in a few months. That sounds like progress.
into double digits. We're on our way.
So hipster moment of Zenith time. It's more of a confession to our listeners. I feel like I owe it to all 6 of you that I was at a New York Rangers game on Friday night. Hosted the game against the Kings. It was the night after the Islanders took care of business against the Kings. And I was in attendance.
Like a dagger. A dagger.
A dagger. And and in fact, the Kings went on to win that game by tying the game with like 30 seconds left in the third period, and then defeating the Rangers in overtime.
That must have been upset, but I guess the result must have been pleasant for you to see, right?
Indeed, of course. It was an exciting game. The Kings got up to a quick 2-0 lead. The Rangers came roaring back, took the lead 3-2. Somehow, I think it was a 5-4 finish. Anyway, it was a fun game, but just gotta be honest with those listeners. If they really they want to judge me for my allegiances. Okay, I was not at the Islanders game this week. I was at a Rangers game. So upcoming, we have.
Well, but I'm sorry, but I just have to ask you one question now. Now you mentioned that, so. Were you receptive of high fives from Ranger fans that were sitting, next to you, people, I guess, that you were with when the Rangers scored? Were you receptive of their high fives, or did you kind of like pull away? I'm sorry, I can't high five that.
I didn't do the pull away. I did connect, but I think for half of the goals, but for half the goals, I did not get up from my chair, whereas everybody else around us did jump up out of their seats. So
well, that's good. I mean, true hipsters don't cheer goals. We get angry when we see bad play, and we can give positive feedback to something, but we don't cheer. I mean,
I think I got more excitement out of the fact that I was sitting next to a couple from Finland, and they were excited because the Rangers' backup goalie was playing. And he's like, and I asked him if there's any other players from Finland in the NHL, and I can't. They may have named 1 or 2 guys who I'd never heard of, just because.
Really? There's a ton of Finnish players in the NHL, and they couldn't name any more. Really?
Interesting.
Did they have a Finland flag? Did they have the flag with them?
No.
Hold it up.
The guy looked, very European with like long, slick blonde hair. I don't know. They were just. We had Kings fans in front of us. I kind of enjoyed that back and forth exchange with people yelling profanities at them, and turned out there was a fight, like a dozen or so rows above us in the stands. Surprise, surprise. So goes hockey games.
So it goes.
So we'll just quickly preview the upcoming slate here for the Islanders. So their next game is at home on Thursday against Washington, as we've mentioned, and then back to back they travel really far to the Prudential Center to take on the Devils in Newark on Friday night, and that is actually the start of a 7-game road trip. Game against New Jersey. I don't know if that really carries much weight as a road game per se, as like a grueling part of a road trip, but 7 straight games. Now that's something. But they'll have 3 days off after that Friday night game. So early next week, they will be in Minnesota, and the grind of travel continues for the Islanders. And I mean, a 7-game road trip to me sounds like a huge test.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, this is good. This is definitely going to be one of the make or breaks for this year as to like where they're going to end up in the standings. Let's see if they can, withstand this next stretch of games here. They're going to have some difficult games in there. Did they go to Western Canada? Is that where they're going? Trying to think now. On their 7 games. I'm actually going to pull it up here right now because I'm curious to see
While
where
you're
they
doing
go.
that, I'll mention that the next podcast I will be on the road. I will be enjoying sunny Orlando out of this single-digit mess in the New York area. We don't have an exact date. It's kind of depend on how my family vacation shakes out. But we're aiming for either a week from today or a week from Wednesday, I think so. One of those days, nights, we'll get it done. All right. And I fully expect that, despite the fact that you were on a family trip to Orlando, which sounds, not very H, but, I can forgive you for that. Well, is it H enough if we actually don't go to Disney while we're in Orlando?
Yes. If you don't go to Disney, then that would definitely H up the trip. Just a bit for me.
We're not planning to go to Disney, so there you go.
All right. Actually, so I am looking at their schedule. So they do go to Western Canada, but guess what? Their next home. So after they play Washington Thursday, you want to take a guess as to what their next home game is going to be?
Or when you mean who they're playing or what date?
Well, both. When and who they're playing.
I don't know.
The date may ring a bell.
I don't know.
They are taking on. All right, I'll just tell you. They're playing the Pittsburgh.
Is it March 8th?
It is March 8th.
Excellent.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Excellent.
Rings a bell.
Well, because Hip and the Lip are aiming to be in attendance for that game.
Will be in attendance. That is the goal.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, Jim. Yes, hello. No, yes.
That's what we'll say next to the people that's what we'll say to the people who sit next to us. Yes, hello.
Well, that way they'll know us right away, and they'll be like, "Wait a minute, are you the Hip and the Lip?" They'll be like, "Yes, guilty as charged." That's
4 followers on Twitter. Yes.
That's right. We're up to 4 now.
Yep, up to 4 with the fake Sarah Silverman.
I got very excited, I will say, when I saw that. I was like, wait a minute.
Eric's Twitter naivete came out in in perfect form when he got excited that an account under the name and picture of Sarah Silverman was following Hip and the Lip. When I quickly checked, the account was following more people than it had followers and did not have the blue check mark, which of course the Lip is still learning is as part of the verification process on Twitter. So, but you're tweeting and that's great, and I like it, and it's live and it's insightful, and we want some engagement, and you got to find some you got to find some insightful tweets from other people covering the Islanders and engage them. So we look forward to that. And until next time.
That's next up.
Yes.
Well, actually, and I'm sorry, I just want to get one more thing in there. I know we're wrapping it up here, but I just had to bring. I had to bring this up. Now, yesterday was Valentine's Day, and today was President's Day. So one of my own personal hipster moment is Zeniths. Now, I have to just preface this by asking you, have you ever seen the movie Ghostbusters 2?
Not in a long time.
All right. Well, there was a scene in Ghostbusters 2 where Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, was hosting, I guess, some kind of psychic show. This is early on in the movie. And he had two psychics on, and he asked them when the end of the world was going to be. He asked the first guy, he said, that was part of the plot of the movie. Oh, it's going to happen this year and whatever and so forth. And then the other person, he asked a date. He asked for a date as to when the end of the world will be. And you know what date she said? I'll take a guess.
Today.
Well, yesterday. February 14th, 2016. And then he looks at the camera and goes, Valentine's Day. Bummer. And the movie was actually on IFC today. And I was home, so I got a chance to see it. And when I saw that, I was like, that's right. He predicted February 14th, 2016. That's right. And the world did not end. Here we are. So this Ghostbusters 2 was not so prophetic.
My guess is Bill Murray said something on Twitter about this yesterday or today.
I'm sure there was probably something written, or I didn't see that. I just saw the movie. I had it on this morning. Saw the scene. I was like, that's right. February 14th, 2016. This movie was made back in 1989. And while you're doing that, and one of my other traditions for Valentine's Day / President's Day is, of course, watching the one of the best Simpsons episodes of all time, which is I Love Lisa. For those who watch The Simpsons, it's the You Choose Me episode. So, of course, as tradition, I had to watch that today. And one of my favorite scenes in that episode is when they salute the mediocre presidents. And Howie actually, bringing it back to the Islanders, Howie actually made a statement today because they had a trivia question of what former Islanders had surnames of former presidents. So there was a guy, Taylor, I didn't even know who he was. And Zachary Taylor, of course, being the president.
Of course.
And Howie was like, oh, wow, what an obscure president. And Zachary Taylor, of course, was one of the presidents mentioned in the salute to the lesser-known presidents. And I even think I got a Twitter on that today. I made sure to mention that.
All right.
And if you want, before we wrap up, I can even sing the song. I know it by heart. If you want.
So we'll conclude. We'll conclude this episode with the song, and we'll sign out at the conclusion of the song, and we'll see you next time. We
begin with the song and with the song. Look at this. Perfect harmony. Do. We are the mediocre presidents. You won't find our faces on dollars or on cents. There's Taylor, there's Tyler, there's Fillmore, and there's Hayes. There's William Henry Harrison. I thought in 30 days. We are the adequate, forgettable, occasionally regrettable caretaker presidents of the U.S. Do. Bom. All right.